Hi everyone, this evening I am playing Retro. Retro is a tactical World War II war game. It's a rulebook, so you have to supply your own tactical components, so maps, counters and such. It's compatible with nearly every single tactical war game you could think of, but you have to do some work to adapt it. So it's most compatible with ASL, so hence you could see the ASL boards and counters. So that's what I'm using, but it's not ASL. It's not a replacement for ASL. It's no way, shape, or form ASL in any manner. And the one of the things the rulebook has, which is quite interesting, is towards the end of the book there are some create your own scenarios, which is what I've done. And the one I'm using tonight is this sort of as a guide is Strike from the Sky, where the American airborne, have been parachuted into what I have laid out. I picked these boards randomly from my starter kit collection, and they have been parachuted into this sort of German occupied town and nearby vicinity. They have 6 objectives: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At the end of turn 7, basically they need to hold captured. I'm going to say 5 of these to win, or 4 of them to win. See how the game plays out. This is a game for fun, and I'm doing this as part of my sort of going through Retro, and I thought I'd do one of their create your own scenarios just to see how that kind of works out. As you can see, there's lots of German occupied squads. The airborne have been parachuted in randomly. I dropped them from about a foot off the board onto the map, and then picked hexes accordingly. But they couldn't be adjacent or within 3 hexes of an objective, for example, or the enemy, or in line of sight of the enemy. So I use that sort of as a rule of thumb. This will play quite quickly. I did increase the number of units compared to what the scenario said. We'll decide if that was folly or not. It depends how long it takes to play this game. Saying that, I'm quite happy to play war games for several hours, so it doesn't bother me. And we'll see how we get on. Like I said, this is a fun thing to do on an evening. I wanted to sort of have a go at creating my own scenario just to see how it works out, and just play it quite cheerfully. I'll be honest with you. There's not too many support weapons. There's no tanks. There's no armor. In fact, there's hardly any support weapons, and I've sort of put them to one side just to show. So there's some LMGs and a couple of hexes here. I think there's an MMG somewhere. Yeah, I gave that squad an MMG. But that's about it. So no satchel charges, no bazookas, no tanks, nothing like that. It's purely squads of infantry. So what I wanted to do was do a larger game than the last time I played Retro, but still keep to simple, straightforward, all about squads and leaders, and just see how it plays. After turn 1, quite an eventful first turn actually. So the Germans then, let's just start this side of the map. So the airborne were able to get into close combat and eliminate these Germans here, so I shall be taking those off. There we go. Here the Germans were able to repel the airborne. This stack is now broken, though there is a leader that will try and rally them. The top end of the map here, the airborne again were able to get into close combat and defeat that stack of Germans there. And just moving through the board, these Germans here were able to, using ranged combat, were able to break these stack here. They have a leader, so they might be able to rally. And this stack here were able to defeat this stack here in ranged combat. And again, there's a leader there, so they may well be able to rally. So straight into the action from the get-go, really. So yeah, on to second turn. The end of turn 2, and yeah, it's getting very vicious now. So we have these American units still broken here. These Germans and Americans still in vicious close combat, no outcome there. Broken unit of Americans there. On this middle section of the board, these Germans were able to defeat these Americans in close combat. So they are out. these Germans were able to hold this building complex really well and defeat both these two units. I think actually, from memory, actually this unit here, or that unit there, defeated one actually. This unit here is still broken. And as we go to this side of the board, broken Germans as a result of being fired on by that unit. Broken Americans have been being fired on from this unit. We mentioned those. Broken Americans here from being fired on by that unit. Those units, sorry. Lots of vicious fighting in this section. I'm sure this is just on camera. Yeah, great. The Americans defeating 2 stacks here. So both these two are out, leaving the Americans easy pickings on that objective. So they'll definitely take that objective in the next turn. So at the end of the last turn, these Germans have been able to defeat the 82nd here with ranged combat, so they are out. These Germans here were able to defeat the Americans in the objective hex, so they are out. And on the middle board, lots of broken units in fairness on the American side. These Americans, however, were able to defeat these Germans here, so they will be removed. These Americans were able to defeat these here in close combat, so they'll be removed. That was a good example, actually. The way the game works is that if you try and attack the enemy from moving to across open ground, when it's their defensive fire, if you're adjacent, they will double. So what you want to do is use another unit to break them, and then with another unit engage them in close combat, which is what happened here. Worked really, really nicely. I mean, the same can be true with a lot of tactical games, in fairness. And then on the sort of this section of the board here, these Germans were able to defeat these Americans in close combat. Again, quite a few broken units here for the Americans. And that was the end of turn 3. So we're getting sort of close to halfway. Who's winning? Oh, sorry, I should have said actually, the Americans have got 2 objectives. This objective here, this objective here. So they've got their 2 of the 6, so that's good for them. In terms of casualties, I think the Americans have inflicted more casualties on the Germans, but then there's a lot more Germans to begin with. But I am very conscious of that there's a lot of American stacks that are broken with no leader. So they're going to try and move the leader around to sort of rally the troops, as it were. We'll see how that works out for them. But yeah, lots of fierce fighting, which is what we like. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Fierce fighting, you like that. As from a wargamer's point of view, making quite a nice narrative of action in and around this city. It's really sort of there's lots of fighting going on. Just completed another turn, and let's have a look. So we have quite a few more units broken. And there's a lot of American units that are broken in fairness, especially these units around here, all broken. For example, these have been defeated in melee by these Germans here, so they'll be removed. And these Germans here were defeated by the fire team, ranged fire here. So that objective is now open, and the Germans won't be able to do anything about it. So the Americans will be able to take that, which means they will have taken 3 of their objectives. The other 3 are there, there, and there. That's potentially they might be able to. Depends how. Oh, yes, the Americans won this melee there, so they will be able to move into melee their next turn. But here, this could be quite difficult for them to take. And this will be very difficult for them to take. There's a lot of German units there. So we'll see how we get on over the next few turns, see if they can do it or not. But yeah, really sort of close fought series of smaller encounters, I think. So another really eventful turn. The Americans were able to defeat this unit in close combat. They were able to defeat this unit in close combat. Units, I should be saying, really. So they've taken that objective. So they now have taken 1, 2, 3, 4 objectives, and I could call the game there as a victory, but I think what we'll do instead, because they have they have defeated a lot of German units, we're just going to play for maybe another turn or two, just to see how close they can get to those last two objectives. And as you can see, there's a lot of broken units all around on both sides. So yeah, we'll do a couple more turns, I think. So we've just done turn number 6, and very vicious. Not in the Americans' favour. So the Germans were able to break a ton of units, and they were able to take this objective back. So and they've been able to hold the Americans off here, and this is just looking impenetrable really in the time that they have. So we'll do another turn just to see how things sort of end up really. But it's definitely swung back more in the Germans' favour. No two ways about it. So we're going to call the game there, and how it ended up. The Americans were able to defeat the Germans in this victory hex in close combat, so they're off. The victory point back in the Americans' favour. The Americans were able to start infiltrating this building complex here, defeating some Germans along the way. These squads were locked in melee combat, and these squads were locked in melee combat here. So the Americans ended up taking 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 6 objectives, fighting over the last objective. And if we do some die rolls real quick, let's just finish that just to hypothetically see how it ended up. The way close combat works is that you have an odds ratio to the attacker to the defender as normal, and it tells you the die roll. So for example, on this squad here, we've got 7, 14, 1 for the leader, 15, 2, 4, 8, 7. So it's not quite 2 to 1. So they roll a 7, which they don't get, and the Germans, they don't get it. The Americans don't get it. The Germans don't get it. Americans double 6, that probably means something. The Germans do get it. So the Germans, I think, no, they wouldn't have done. So, and you keep, oh, there we go. Right, the Americans won. So the Americans, if I'd have kept playing for a number of turns, the Americans eventually would have won that. As you can see, it's really quick. And you would only actually roll once per side. You don't keep rolling until the melee's done. You just, you have to take another turn and so forth. So, but they couldn't really take this one. And that illustrates it would have taken them a number of turns to have taken that objective. So it is a fast-playing, very, very light World War II tactical rule set. As I keep saying, it's not ASL. It's not a replacement for ASL. I just happen to be using ASL components to play Retro. You can use other tactical World War II games. I can remember having a go using Combat Commander, I think. Yes, it was Combat Commander. The maps weren't quite big enough as in terms of the hex sizes. And as you can see, there's quite a few hex by quite a few hex. This, in a way, maybe this would have... Maybe the next time if I tried this sort of thing, I'd probably do it on 2 maps rather than the 3. There's quite a lot of units. But it gives them more of a grander sort of scale of the battle, which is it's been fun. And that's the key thing with Retro. And that's what I wanted this evening. Just a fun, fast-paced, light wargaming experience. Moving some infantry counters around. Rolling some dice. Let the narrative take part. Let it play out depending on what happens. Trying to play both sides. The American counters are very different than the Germans, so they're got higher values, but there's lots more Germans. So yeah, it was good fun. And that's what, sometimes, I'll be honest with you, sometimes if you've been at work all day, you've had a busy day, you want to play something light, you want to play something where you can hold all the rules in your head. There's just a couple of charts to look at, which is on the back of the book on Retro, which is very handy. That's literally all if you're just playing interest, simply all you need. So that was quite good, and I enjoyed that. Fast pacing, strong narrative coming through in the gameplay, which I enjoyed. And I felt at playing this, it could have gone either way at several points. The other thing that's interesting is that creating your own scenarios is a lot of fun. It's a fun part of the hobby. It's not something that a lot of us do too many times, really. I think we play the games as they're designed, to the scenario as they're designed. But every now and then I will dip in and just go, yeah, I'm just going to change this and create my own using the rule set, using the counters and the maps and so forth. And I've done that on quite a few different games now, and I've always enjoyed it. I do, obviously, I'm a game designer, so I enjoy sort of being creative in this way. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I hope it gives you some indication of what you can do with retro. And this is just one example. The rulebook comes with tons more examples of scenario creation. As I said, there's no tanks. It's literally just, I just went for the most straightforward game on a larger sort of playing area with more counters, but kept them simple. So very few support weapons, just lots of infantry counters and commanders, and tried that. And the next time I try it, I might have a different ratio and have some armor in there, or have more support weapons, etc., and have some more special things like that. So a lot of fun. Didn't take long to play, just over an hour. That's quite a large physical for this sort of scale. Number of hexes quite large. So yeah, a fun, furious, wargaming evening. So I enjoyed it very much. What I might do with retro, I probably should do a sort of more detailed analysis of the game, and I might do a separate video for that, just talking through how some of the mechanics work and give some concluding thoughts to what retro is, what retro is not, and who it's for, which I think is really important with this game. So yeah, hopefully that was fun, and thanks for watching as ever. Thank you.